Good morning, Year 8, and welcome to our new topic. We are moving on to ecosystem processes. So I would like you to put that as your main title for today. It is going to be Monday or Tuesday, which is going to be the 27th or 28th. So date, title, make it big because it's a whole new topic. So what I would like you to do, these are our orange rag sheets that we normally have in lesson. I just want you to read these though. I'm not expecting you to copy them out. There's too much writing here. So let's just read them and then we're going to do something slightly different. So now we're going to do something slightly different. So instead of a rag sheet, we are going to make a mind map. So it's a mind map about everything we already know about ecosystems and ecosystems processes. Then what we're going to do at the very end of this topic, so in a few weeks' time, we'll make another mind map and then we'll be able to compare our mind map at the end with our mind map at the start, and we can see then how much we've learned. So our first lesson for our ecosystem processes topic is photosynthesis. You need to know this word, you've probably heard of it already, and you need to know how to spell this. This is going to come up in every single biology test that you ever do, all the way up to GCSE. So it's to do with plants. You can probably guess that from the picture here. But what do we know? What do plants need to grow? Have a little think. So what would you need? If you had a plant in your house or in your garden, what would it need? And what might it produce? Have a little think. So you probably came up with some of these ideas. So photo means light and synthesis means to make something. So photosynthesis means to make something from light. So a plant needs light, it needs sunlight, we all know that. It also needs a gas called carbon dioxide. This will diffuse into the plant via tiny little holes underneath the bottom of the leaf. And you all know that plants need water. So they will suck up the water from the soil and that will be taken up in the root hair cells, which we'll look at later, and that is sucked all the way up the plant, up the stem and into every single leaf. When it's in the leaf, there is a green pigment, so a green dye called chlorophyll. This is found in the chloroplast, and this will use the sunlight to turn the carbon dioxide and the water into glucose and oxygen. Glucose is a sugar, that is the food for the plant, so that enables the plant to grow, make flowers, seeds, fruits, and that is also what becomes the main body of the plant, the biomass of the plant. And obviously in food chains, that is what every animal and every human on earth ends up eating. It also makes oxygen, which most of us know is absolutely vital for humans and most life on earth for breathing and respiration. So can you please write down a list of what is needed for photosynthesis? So we know what a plant needs to grow and develop and be healthy, but we need an actual definition for this new word, photosynthesis. So photosynthesis is a chemical change. It happens in our green leaves and it makes food. So it makes glucose. It turns carbon dioxide and water into glucose and oxygen using that green substance called chlorophyll. So you've got all the information on your screen now. What I would like you to do is, in your own words, I would like you to write the shortest definition possible for what photosynthesis. If you can, try and squeeze it into one tiny sentence. So here's the equation for photosynthesis. We need to learn this off by heart. Again, it will be used right up until your GCSEs. So it is carbon dioxide plus water. Then via sunlight and chlorophyll, it turns into oxygen and glucose. So you need to write out this word equation. For those of you that want to extend yourself a little more, you can then convert this into our symbols. So carbon dioxide is CO2. Water, probably most of us know, is H2O. Oxygen is going to be O. And glucose, a little bit more tricky, is C6H12O6. You can then balance that with all the sixes in front of every single compound apart from the glucose. So if you're in the X band, bare minimum, I want you to write out the word equation. If you are in grammar stream, you definitely need the word equation and the symbol equations, and you need to learn both off by heart. So during photosynthesis, it makes glucose. So the whole point of the plant doing this is, unlike us, plants can't go out and just eat food. They have to make their own food. So their primary product is this sugar called glucose. This is soluble, so it means it dissolves in water. So it can be carried up the plant stem, up and down the plant stem to wherever the plant needs it for growth, repair, making seeds, fruit, flowers. The byproduct of photosynthesis is oxygen. So it is making glucose primarily, but as an offset of that, it also makes oxygen, which is obviously fantastic for us and all life on Earth because that is what we need to breathe. So once the plant has been photosynthesizing, it makes glucose. This is then either used directly by the plant for respiration and immediate sort of chemical processes, or it can be stored. So it needs to be stored in a form that is not soluble, so it doesn't dissolve. So it's stored in the form of starch. And don't forget, when we did our food test, we did an experiment to test for starch. Can you remember what that was? Have a little think. It can also be used to make cellulose, so that's used to make the cell walls. Obviously, a plant does not have a skeleton, so it needs this cellulose to make it stronger, make it tall, make it stand up, give it some kind of structure and support. It can also make proteins. It can make fats and oils, so these might be in the form of a seed. And then it also can make every single part of the plant from roots up to leaves, including all those other things that it needs, seeds, pollen, nectar, for a healthy plant and a healthy lifestyle. So make some notes on this in your book and then move on. So we've had lots of keywords so far: photosynthesis, chlorophyll, chloroplast, oxygen, carbon dioxide. Our next keyword is the word producer. So because plants produce their own food, so they don't go to the supermarket and buy it, they produce sugar, they are called producers. They can be a normal plant, tree, shrub, flower, or they can also be algae. So you might see this in rivers or in ponds, or even just growing on something that has water on in the garden. And they contain the green pigment chlorophyll that takes the chemicals, carbon dioxide and water, and using photosynthesis, light energy, it turns them into food. So that is why they are called producers. So can you just write down the word producer and put a very short bullet point as to what that means. Our next keyword is consumer. So we are consumers, and most animals are going to be consumers because we can't make our own food. We are not producers. Mammals aren't producers. Cows, dogs, cats, all of those are consumers. They can't make their own food and they have to use something else to feed from. So we normally feed on other producers or other consumers. So now we're starting to picture what becomes a food chain. And eventually a food chain becomes a food web, and that becomes part of an ecosystem, which is what our whole topic over the next few weeks will be. So next keyword is consumer. Can you write one very short bullet point what a consumer is? So our last slide today is a diagram of a typical flowering plant, and we're trying to show the journey of water into the plant and out the top at the leaves and the flowers. So water diffuses into the root hair cells. It is then transported up the plant right to the tips through tiny tubes called xylem tubes. As more and more water evaporates from the top of the plant through the leaves, if it's a hot day or a windy day, there's going to be more evaporation and it's going to suck up more water from the soil in the ground. So if you can imagine that a plant is almost like a straw. So as the wind or the sun or the plant using water sucks up water at the top of the plant, it is going to draw water up through the roots and the stem and the leaves, and then this will eventually evaporate out into our atmosphere at the top. So what I would like you to do is draw your own plant. It can be a tree, it can be a shrub, whatever kind of plant you like, make your own. And then I want you to label it with these key words on the side. Off you go. Now I would like you to go back to YouTube and watch our experiment, our video clip of photosynthesis. It's only a short video and it shows the experiment we would have normally used in the classroom to show that plants actually do produce their own food. We've got one plant that we kept in the sunlight and one leaf that we kept in the dark. So that will show that sunlight actually produces the sugars, glucose, and then stores it as starch. So going back to our food test, the test for starch is iodine. So we'll be using iodine to test each leaf for starch. If starch is present, then obviously that proves that if the one in sunlight has starch present, that the light was involved in making that sugar. And if the one kept in the dark does not produce any starch, then it shows that photosynthesis and food production cannot happen unless there is sunlight.
Okay, hello, you right?
Hi, you mate. So today we are looking at photosynthesis and we are going to be testing the leaves on a plant to see if they are photosynthesizing and also if they are actually producing glucose or starch. So we have our starch test here. So going back to our food tests, we use iodine to test for starch. Glucose is made in photosynthesis and stored in the leaf as starch because it's not soluble, it's insoluble. That's the word of the day. So what we're going to do, we are going to test a green leaf. So this is a normal plant leaf that's been out in the sunshine, doing its thing, photosynthesizing. And then we've done some that are in the dark. So we've covered them in foil. So hopefully these haven't been photosynthesizing. And we're going to see if there is any difference with the iodine test in the leaves that are open to the sunlight and leaves that have been kept in the dark. Hopefully we will see that these ones contain the sugars in the form of starch and these ones do not. So first things first, we are going to take a leaf. This is geranium and we're going to put it in a water bath, so basically hot water. like so. The reason we are putting it in hot water is just to soften up that leaf, break down those cells inside, so we can gain access to any starch that might be available in the leaf. So we go back to our geranium. So we've got one here. This has been kept for a few days in the dark. I'm going to pinch that off. Ideally, we would have done this over a matter of weeks to see a real difference. So that's maybe one improvement we'll see at the end. So this is our in the dark leaf. So we're going to leave that for a few minutes. Let that break down. You will start to see the green colouring coming out of this, which is the chlorophyll, the green pigment in the plant that is needed for photosynthesis. We are then going to use methylated spirits here to again break down that starch a bit more. And then finally, we are going to use iodine to test for the presence of starch. If starch is present, what colour will it go?
Just having a look there. I don't know if it's showing up, but you can kind of see that that is just starting to go green. All that colour is just coming out of that leaf, all of that chlorophyll, as Miss said.
All right. So what we're going to do now, we're going to take methylated spirits. You might know this. Some people use this to basically clean paintbrushes and things like that at home. But it is a type of industrial alcohol. So we are going to pour a little bit of methylated spirits or meths into our boiling tubes. We are then very carefully going to take our leaf out and we're going to place it into the alcohol and we'll put it back in the water bath. We're then going to do exactly the same for our second leaf that was kept in the dark. And we're going to pop it down in there. Again, we're going to leave that for a few minutes.
And remember, we're just doing this to break down the leaf so that when we test for starch, it's going to be able to get right into the cells of the leaf.
Look how green that water has gone. That is all the chlorophyll, which is kept in the chloroplast inside the leaf, has come out and gone into the water, turning it a green colour. So as you can see, at the moment we've now turned off our Bunsen burner. The alcohol is still boiling and yet the water is not. Now we all know that water boils at what temperature? If you said 100 degrees, you are correct. Alcohol actually boils at, do you know what temperature? We have done this in distillation. 78 degrees Celsius. So at the moment, although the Bunsen burner has turned off, the water is no longer boiling because it's cooled down. However, the ethanol is still burning at, or boiling at 78 degrees Celsius. It's starting to slow down a little bit now. As it cools down, it will eventually stop boiling. We can actually really tell what the temperature of both of these liquids are when they stop boiling.
And we're back.
Okay, so now it's cooling down. You may want to do some kind of risk assessment on this. Obviously, we are dealing with glass, we're dealing with a chemical, and we are also dealing with hot heating equipment, our Bunsen burner. As you can see, look at the colour that has come out of that leaf. You can also see the colour of this leaf. I'm going to carefully spread it out. And I'm just going to show you the difference between our leaf and the original colour of the leaf. So you can really see where the chlorophyll has opened up and gone into the water and come out of it. Now hopefully what we've got left behind is starch. So we're going to use our iodine test. I'm just going to spread that out. Obviously I am touching chemicals, so I'm very careful not to touch my face or any other part of my body. We are then going to put a few drops of iodine on here. Now I asked you earlier what colour you thought it might go, and And the answer is actually a black purple colour if starch is present. I'm going to cover that in quite a lot of iodine. We'll leave that for a minute, see if there's any change. And then we'll dry it off in a second. Let's do the other one while we've got that. So this is our leaf that was kept in the dark. So if I can just pull that out. So again, the chlorophyll's come out into the water. You can see it's whiter. It goes quite crispy once you've pulled it out, so we have to tease it open. Do you know what we should have done, miss?
What should we have done, miss?
Given it a little rinse in the water.
A little rinse in the water, that's it.
Just to get rid of the alcohol on the outside. Actually softens it up a little bit again. There we go. Makes it slightly easier to work with. So again, let's do our iodine test.
So I want you guys to be having a think to yourself now. What should you see on leaf number 1 that had sunlight, and what should you see on leaf number 2 that's been kept in the dark? We're going to have a look at 2 leaves together now. And compare the difference. Look at that.
Wow, very impressed. You can clearly see this leaf has got far more dark patches than this leaf.
And do you remember what we're testing for? Iodine is the test for what food group? It is starch.
Carbohydrates.
And that is what that top leaf has been busy making by photosynthesis. And that's why you've got a positive test up there. And this leaf down at the bottom has been kept in the dark. It's been neglected. It's had foil wrapped around it. And it has got a negative test there. So there's no starch present. And that was only over a couple of days. And it has not been able to make any starch.
Okay, so what you need to do now, if you're kind to your plants at home, is have a look. Are your plants in your house getting enough sunlight? If they are not getting enough sunlight, they will end up like this and eventually die. So maybe put them near a window.
Yeah.
Do the right thing.
Not too direct though. You will burn those plants. They want a little bit of sunlight. A little bit goes a long way.
So photosynthesis creates glucose, which is stored as starch in the leaf, and iodine has shown a positive result in this. This leaf has not been photosynthesizing, therefore has given a negative result for iodine, and you can see there are no blacky purple patches on this leaf at all.